Hi, I'm Trisha J. Wooldridge, and I am a novel friend. A novel friend is the business that I started some time ago to encompass my editing, my writing, being an author, and everything I love about words. Because words are a bridge between people for communications, a way to build relationships, and as corny as it sounds, to make the world a better place. Hello YouTube, happy Halloween. This is Trish with a novel friend. So today's poem that I'm sharing with you is called Witch, and it's in the New England Horror Writers anthology, Wicked Witches, which you can get from the links below. And here's the cover. Gorgeous, I love this book. It's a great collection of short stories, poetries, all about witches. And my poem in this and several others were in the honorable mentions for the Best of Horror for 2016. So lots of reasons to check out this really cool anthology. I hope you enjoy as much as you can my poem, Witch. Witch. She named her daughter Mary. Mary had a differently shaped brow and lip. People in the village would have called her ugly. But the new mother had once heard someone say the devil didn't take ugly children. It was an odd thing, but she remembered it. Mary was the name of important people, good people in the Bible. She would raise a good girl. And Mary was a good girl. She learned the lessons her mother taught. She learned the lessons her father taught, like what plants would make her sick if she ate them. What would make her dead? Mary was a good girl who didn't like to see things suffer, like her mother. Her mother, who threw herself in front of her father's angry, violent hands to keep Mary from getting more bruises, from looking more ugly, as her father sometimes called her when he was being bad. Mary was a good girl. She cried when her father didn't wake up one morning, as a good girl should, and she promised she would take good care of her mother, the way her mother took good care of her. That meant that Mary sometimes had to wander off on her own, to help mother find plants and fruits that wouldn't kill them, and sometimes trap the woodland animals, as her father used to do, only he would bring them to their door and bleed, butcher, and skin them while her mother cried. Mary always did such things away from the house. A good girl doesn't make her mother cry. But because a good girl doesn't lie, when her mother asked where she'd gotten a pail of milk, Mary had to tell her of the place she'd found. Her mother scolded her, became angry. Mother was never angry. Mother told her what happened to her, save the secret she told no one. Good girl that mother was. Mother told Mary how the village chased her, how she came to live in the woods with the outcast red boy and Mary. They would call you a witch. Mary decided she would not be a good girl and lied when she said she would never return to the village again. They called her a witch. Her mother, who never hurt anyone, who cried when animals bled and died, who stood in front of punching hands, a witch. They called her a witch. A good girl does not steal. But if Mary was not going to be a good girl and lie, she may as well steal too. Winter came, as it did every year, cold and deadly. The villagers were preparing. Mother was preparing, worried about food without father. Mary was preparing. She fashioned a hole in the ground and lined it with stones, then dribbled water lightly on the frost-begun days so it froze faster. Mary killed animals from other people's barns, as well as those she caught, and always where Mother couldn't see. Neither she nor her mother would die from winter, nor any other of winter's deadly natural elements. Sometimes Mary's father had brought home root vegetables. He'd said he'd found them growing wild. Mary's mother didn't know. Mary figured her father had stolen them too. Mary's mother wouldn't know. Mary was a good bad girl who didn't want to hurt her mother. They called her a witch. Surely a woman wouldn't last so long in the woods. Surely childbirth alone should have killed her. Animals and food continued to go missing. People were hearing whispers and movement. People were seeing shadows and flashes where there were none. Except there was Mary, who heard every whisper and saw every frightened glance. They called her a witch. The signs of rot, the poison plants mixed in with gathered grass, were not Mary's doing. But Mary recognized the danger. These were things her father had taught her, things that could make people sick or dead. She was not so bad a girl that she wished other people harm, even if they were cruel and apparently foolish. To not realize what was really making people and animals sick. Even her father, who had made her and her mother bleed and bruise, who called her ugly, never let them eat poison or rot. And Mary was surely not as bad as he. She saw a child younger than her, she was hardly a child any longer, and tried to catch his attention, to warn him, to save him, to teach him something. And he was only a child. Mother always said it was worse to make children suffer. But when the boys saw Mary, her face, her sun-darkened skin, her wild, uncovered hair, her animal skin clothes, he screamed and cried and threw stones and ran away. He didn't even call her a witch. Devil! Mary knew she should run and hide, but not before a moment of pride. I am no devil. I am a witch. Then she ran back to her woods, back to her dark, bedeviled home. Leave them to their fate. She would take what she needed, as she needed, but not today. They called her a witch. One day, Mary's mother saw her tracks in the snow, saw where they were leading, and tried to brush away the frozen tears as she followed. A good mother keeps her daughter safe. She heard the screams, anger, pain. Mary, she ran and ran and ran to the place she'd never wanted to see again. Outside of the meeting house, a mob held her daughter, barely held her, as they tried to get a rope around her neck. It wasn't as if the girl hadn't known violence. The familiar cries pounded in her ears. Witch! 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 Mother! The mob turned to her. Mother froze, shivering in the snow at the end of hell ice stairs. But then a hellfire blazed in her heart as she saw her daughter held in hands that looked familiar to ones that touched her long ago, attached to a mouth that told her to be a good girl and then called her witch. A young baker, not much older than her daughter, but the face almost perfectly the same, Goodman Baker. She didn't see the elder bakers, the ones she'd known. She didn't care. Her daughter was being hurt. She walked toward the mob. At her stride, the fear she felt fled her and preyed upon them. He told her not to come any closer. He held a rope around her daughter's neck. He held her daughter. She continued forward. A woman screamed, told her to stay away. Something made her pause and look. the woman carried a babe, wrapped in a pattern weave she'd seen before on an older, a different good wife baker's shoulders. Good wool was always passed to children, her father once had said when he tucked her into bed a long, long time ago. Young Goodman Baker, who still held neck-roped Mary on that cold, dead snow day, shouted to the woman he called Martha. With concern, the woman called witch Mother found that interesting. There were many Marthas in the Bible, intertwined with Marys. "What's your child's name?" she asked young Goodman Baker. In his moment of confusion at such a question from a witch, Mary stomped his foot, snapped her head back against his nose, and pulled the rope from her neck. His blood froze crunching crystals in her uncovered witchy wild hair. She ran to her mother. So did the mob. Mary had found freedom. The mob had found tools, weapons with which they thrust, pounded, speared, poked, and bludgeoned her mother. Witch! 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 Her mother's blood iced upon the ground. More fell in its slick beneath a town of angry boots. They called her a witch. The name took her life. Mary ran, dodging through mad, blood-blind people, reaching and clawing like a storm grasping branches. Mary had lived through more than a few storms. A baby cried. He called her Martha. Mary decided it was the baby's name. Mary tackled the woman and took the child in its blanket. She didn't know why, but she felt it was the right thing to do. Not a choice for a good girl or a bad girl, but the choice that needed to be made. And she ran to where the witch-namers would not follow, the dark, forbidden, bedeviled woods. Deep, deep, deep away from the people, Mary laid the infant down in a bed of dried grasses and animal skins in a hidden house. She would protect Martha's life with her own from all the world that deemed them wicked or ugly or witches, as her mother had done for her. She kissed baby Martha's forehead and said, "They will call you a witch." So that was the second half of Witch. I hope you enjoyed hearing it and seeing it as much as I enjoyed performing it. You can get a copy of Witch and a bunch of other really amazing witchy stories and poems in the New England Horror Writers anthology, Wicked Witches. The link is below. Here's the pretty cover again. Thank you so much for joining me. If you've enjoyed these videos, please share them around, leave a comment, maybe subscribe, and I've got something totally different and new that I'll share with you for November. Happy Halloween!